Hello, North Decatur family. My name is Brittany. I am a member of staff at the North Decatur United Methodist Church. I'm so glad that you are joining us as we walk through the book of Acts together. This week we are in chapter 2, which Patrick told us about on Monday and reminded us about the joy of Pentecost and the hope that it offers to the future of the church. Edry reminded us of the Tower of Babel and how God separated our community way back, and how at the Pentecost the wounds of separation, the differences in our language, the barriers to understanding one another, how room for healing was created in the Pentecost, how the apostles spoke and the multitudes gathered in Jerusalem could understand the words of the apostles in their own home tongues, and how that led to the good news of Christ being heard and accepted by so many people. Tyler talked yesterday about the work of God and how God is drawing the circle of community wider and wider, and how this story about Pentecost in the Bible invites us to do the same thing. In our scriptures today, we're looking in chapter 2 at verses 37 through 41. This comes after the sermon by Peter, and the people hear, and the Bible tells us that they are deeply troubled. And they say to Peter and the other apostles, "Brothers, what should we do?" Brothers, what should we do? And sisters, what should we do? It makes me feel, sometimes I'll be in the sanctuary, I'll be at church, and there'll be a really amazing sermon, and I feel it in my heart, and I'm convicted, and I'm inspired, and I go, what do I do? And maybe I don't cry that out, but maybe I should. Because one thing that this story can tell us is that you could ask questions, and that questions are valuable. And the question that the people asked that day of the apostles is, "Brothers, what should we do?" And the answer that Peter gives them is so simple. But often in the Bible, we find that it's those simple answers that are the hardest to live into. So the answer comes from Peter. He says, "Change your hearts and your lives." It reminds me of one of my favorite songs. There is a beautiful opera written by Mendelssohn called Elijah, about the prophet Elijah. And in it, there's a song, and the prophet Elijah sings, I'll sing it. He sings, "Ye people, rend your hearts, and not your garments." And he goes on. But I love that line, "Rend your hearts and not your garments." There was an ancient practice of sorrow, and we hear about it sometimes in the Bible, where people would be so overcome by their emotion that they would rend their garments apart, and they would put on sackcloth and ashes. And Elijah says, don't rend your garments. What good is that? Rend your heart open. And so I invite you today to think about that. Is your heart rent open before God? Are you changing your heart? Are you allowing God into your heart so that God might change your life for you? Where is your heart being changed by God? Tyler invited us into a moment of confession yesterday where we look at what evidence of God that we're missing in our lives. Or I wondered, what evidence of God am I blocking in my life? What evidence is God trying to raise up in front of me and I am actively working against? So I wonder, where should I be changing my life? And right now, when everything in the world has changed, are those changes bringing you closer to God? Are they bringing you more into community or farther apart? And I invite you to sit again and to ponder if the changes are bringing you more faith or less. And sometimes the answers are not important. And if there's only one right answer, then it's not a good question, right? So don't feel bad if the answer is, it's moving me farther away from God, because at least then you know, right? Any good science experiment reveals information, even if the hypothesis we want is not proven, right? So I invite you to sit and rend your hearts and not your garments. Sit and hear the good news of Christ proclaim, and sit and invite God to change your life. Thank you for joining me today. If this message inspired you, please comment with what you thought. If this message reminded you of a friend, or if you just want to share with your own community, please do so. Tag a friend, hit that share button. Let us know that it was valuable to you. You are valuable, both to God and to this community. I wish you well, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.